Is your husband cheap? Is it like driving you crazy? And it's like, oh, come on, right? Today, we have an amazing show. We have this very, very special lady. Actually, her issue is cheap, but it's also micromanaging. So we're going to get into it, but stay tuned. You're going to find out what to do and how to behave and how to improve the situation if your husband is cheap. Stay tuned. This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. Okay, so this is the Get Real show, and what I don't know, for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, we have a synthesizer. It's about the size of a doormat, and it's got a million different buttons. And we are going to have this lady. Her name is Rikki, not really her name, okay? And her name, she's got married 17 years, not really 17 years, and she's got 6 kids, not really 6 kids, okay? So somewhere around that, and she's an anonymous person. She could be in Israel, she could be in Africa, she could be in Australia, New York, California, Mars, for all we know. She's an anonymous person, and the synthesizer is going to disguise her voice so she can be honest without saying lashon hara, gossip about her husband. And this way we can get real deep, real fast. Okay, so here's the story with Rikki, and this is the situation that she's calling about why is my husband so cheap. So in her situation, he's also like micromanaging. So I had a pre-show interview with her to talk to her about the problem, and I'm going to delineate it for her and then for you, and then we're going to bring Rikki on the show. So her daily life is all about her husband being totally micromanaging the kids about them wasting money. So for instance, he gets super mad if a kid takes a tissue and then right away takes another tissue. Use the tissue you already have. If plastic forks and spoons, washes them and reuses them. This is a true story. Okay, he says, you left the cereal box out. He's like, it's going to be spoiled. Nobody wrapped it. Who did this? He walks around the house. Why is this messy? Why is this house like this? What did you do here? Somebody left a door open. Somebody left a light on. His whole 24/7 is micromanaging the kids, and a lot of it has to do with them teaching them not to do baltashlis, not to waste. We don't want to waste. Don't waste things. He happens to be a nice man, gives them what they need, but he is on their case 24/7 about wasting. Let me just make sure I got it all the thing. Yeah, he's annoying and nagging and critical. He whining constantly about the kids wasting. So here's what Rikki came to me, and here's what she said. I just can't take it. Ignoring it doesn't work. I am livid. It's like, enough already. It's like, I love him. He's my hero. I think of that in my head. But then when he does these activities all day long, drives me crazy. Drives us further apart. It ruins the whole atmosphere in the home. I keep telling him not to be so uptight about every little thing, but he just doesn't listen. He doesn't let anything slide. And her feelings, Rikki's feelings are, pick your battles. Like, you're fighting over all this stuff. We have much bigger things we want to teach the kids than not to be wasteful. And believe me, they already get it. He nitpicking too hard, not to be wasteful, just completely criticism. And I keep telling him to try and just enjoy the family. And then the other thing is she always wants to take the kid's side because she's so annoyed. Like, who cares who left the cereal out? Okay, they'll eat it tomorrow. It's not like, okay, it'll be a little stale. So that's the basic scenario we're going to be dealing with today. And we're going to get on the other side of God willing by the end of the show. And right now, I just want to make sure, Rikki, did I get everything I said right? And what did I miss? Welcome on the show. Welcome on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you got everything down packed right.
Yeah. Okay. Just trying to update, and say it in very short. Did I say it short? No. Sari, that wasn't short, right?
No, that was perfect though. That sounded exactly like obviously what she's going
painted the picture, and
you nailed it.
That's it. Okay, fine. So ladies, start your questions. Instagram, Facebook, Torah anytime. Get your questions rolling in because this is live, and if you have the same issue, this is the best way to get that issue handled. So the first question I want to ask you is there any, first of all, was there any points that I missed of what bothers you about this situation?
I guess I want to work on myself more to be the best wife that I can, but this is the one little niche where I feel like it makes it so hard.
Right. Got it. Okay, fine. So what issue is, like, if you had to look at this thing in an aggregate, the whole picture or whatever, what part of this is is it something that you feel you might be able to work on? Let's just explore that angle for a second.
What do you mean?
I mean, that there are things that we talk a lot about on the Ladies Talk Show, how a person can be a victim. The husband does this and he does that and he does all these things that are so mean and not nice or whatever, totally get it. And he is wrong, right? That doesn't give a woman a lot of power. Like making him wrong and playing the victim. It's like, you kind of like, what do I do? I just have to live with it.
Oh, how do I balance it out type of thing?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So my question is, in terms of being the victim, what 1% could you be doing? Could you be bringing to the table to turn the whole tide of the whole thing? That's the question.
Exactly. What I try to work on is realizing that I myself have my flaws. And I know that Chazal say sometimes the best thing is to look the other way and not have to make a comment on everything. So I'm really working hard on biting my tongue and not picking on every little thing, just looking the other way and trying to say it. Like, if I do have to talk to him, I'll say it in a way where we can both come out a winner, meaning to say, I try to see us as a team, and I try to work on, I want to come out of this coming closer and not further apart. So sometimes I think about it and it takes me some time to regurgitate it, like an hour or two, and I'll come out of it saying it as in like, it really would mean a lot to me if we can possibly try to work on X, Y, and Z. And it makes it easier for me because my whole goal is I want to get closer to my husband and not just knock him out and just diffuse myself and make him feel better.
Right. And by the way, we met quite some time ago, and when you issues and it didn't work out for you to come on the show at that time or whatever. And you said that you're reading your Marriage Secrets, and which is a book. It's got 220 Torah sources on it. That's a book I wrote.
Your lectures are really, really hitting home. Like, it helps me. I have like a little Yetzer Hara and a little Yetzer Tov. Leah Richeimer sits on my right side face.
That's adorable. So she's saying she's really working on it. You can tell, like, it wasn't what she was saying inspiring. It's like she's making this she's coming from the right place or whatever. It's still hard because the things he's doing are so annoying. And the whole thing about wasting and washing the plastic forks and all that kind of thing. It's one of those. It's not like something that kind of happens once every 3 weeks. It happens every day, all day, every day. So this is why it's a particular challenge in this way. So in terms of—
Well, Sarah on Facebook is asking, was this something that was always an issue? Meaning, was it something that when they were dating, he was sort of like cheap like that in terms of being or frugal or careful this way? Or is it something that she only saw after being married for a while?
I think it wasn't right away because we don't know what makes another person tick until after you're married for some time. You know what I mean? It's only when the kids come and we have our pet peeves and like we prefer it a certain way. So it only once after we had more kids and more things to look after and more things to do. And I hear it. I definitely hear it. It's not easy.
So have your conversations with him, that was a good question. Thank you. Have your conversations with him accomplished anything? Like, have they moved the dial at all? Has he slowed down his critical nature with the kids from your conversations with him?
In the past, it just left like if I would come out just like, you're always doing this and it's so annoying, and like I really tried hard coming into Shabbos with an atmosphere, and like you totally come there and you don't think about us and you blow everybody off type of thing, and then like that just left us in a strained state.
You said strained? In a strained?
Strained, yeah. Our relationship was strained. Like we didn't have that
tension in the room. Yeah, in the house. Yeah,
right.
Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then after I started learning and listening to lectures, a lot of them helped enhance my outlook, as in I need to have a little bit of emotional maturity and what's my goal? You know what I mean? So once I was able to communicate to him and make him feel like we're in it together and I'm not against you, I'm asking you if it make me very happy, he really, really it hit home. And he did like that more.
So explain, what's the word, like dissect the anatomy of what that conversation was, because I'm sure everybody could really, benefit from hearing what did you say? Okay, I'll be your husband, you be you, and say, what did you say to him that you're saying worked so well?
I didn't say anything at the moment. I stopped. I learned the hard way that not everything has to be said at the moment. So I waited until there was a good time and I calmed down a bit and I said, I would really like to discuss something with you. I'm sure you know how I feel about it, and you might have seen my reaction once or twice. I'm like, but maybe it's a good time to talk about it right now. I want to tell you how I feel about it. And I said, I really am enjoying a relationship since we've been learning. I'm really enjoying the connection. And I was like, and I would prefer if maybe we can work something out to balance it out. Like, I'm totally on the ball game with you. I don't like it when the kids waste, and I'll try my best to say, but is it possible? Like, 2 out of every 5 times, maybe you could just look the other way. You know what I mean? Like, look at the time frame. Is it a good time? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, take everything in consideration for me, for my tranquility and peace of mind. And maybe just like every few out of a few, like look the other way and may not say something. And he said he'll try it. He was very
And
open-minded about it
did
because I
he?
came.
Did he try it?
He has. I definitely seen in him, you know what I mean? He is trying. It's not easy, you
It
know.
might be an idea to talk to him about why he focuses on this so much. Like, in other words, if he understood his own, like, this is obviously like, it's kind of like a habit that he has, he's probably not even, aware so much of how deeply ingrained a habit it is. And he may not, in other words, the kids probably already know not to waste. They've got him as a father. There's no way they're going to grow up and go get off and get married and not have inculcated his deep feeling about this. But if he were to understand why he's so driven, was he raised by somebody who wasted? Was he raised by somebody who was frugal his whole life and now he has more money but he still wants to make sure that they...
No,
Do you know why?
no, that's a very good question. I should ask him.
Of why, like what is his motivation? If he thinks that if his motivation is because he thinks that's really important lesson for the kids to learn, then you can ask him, well, do you think they'll learn it if you peck at them all day, or do you think they'll learn it better if you explain it to them and then put some duct tape on you, don't say anything, what do you think is the best way to get them to learn it? And maybe then he stops and thinks and he said, yeah, actually, if we sat them down on Shabbos and read them a whole book on recycling and, whatever, then I wouldn't have to say anything because they do it in themselves. I had a relative came and said, I said, oh yeah, we can use, if this part of the potato or something. And this little kid, I think they were, I want to say 4, said, wow, that's amazing. You're having much less of a carbon footprint. I'm like, what? right? A carbon footprint. I'm like,
who even knows that?
I know. It's like, what? A 4-year-old kid telling me this. So, but the issue is, it's much more, there's books on it. There's, maybe even a cartoon or something for kids that can explain it to them. Maybe that's a better way to teach them rather than having the dad ruin the home's atmosphere all the time with that. So if you had these kind of conversations with him about what's driving him, it's probably, has something to do with the fact he wants the kids to be raised to become frugal or something like that, which I can.
Yeah, but Leah, one of the things that she had mentioned was about like washing plastic and stuff like that, and maybe even reusing tins, etc. I recall you saying in another class that if a woman, for her, a Rebbitzin maybe even told you that a woman, if for her own sanity and her own ability to be able to run the home, needs to use paper goods or needs to make her life easier because she's so busy, that's a good thing. Meaning, so like it seems like he's asking her to do something that's like, what's the point of using the plastic if you're going to be washing it? Then just use regular.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that's true. Who said something? I heard some other voice coming in.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's that to me is like, how does she even tell him? Because that doesn't even sound frugal. That sounds like, what are we buying plastic for if we're going to be washing it?
Yeah, no, 100%. But here's the issue, without sort of really getting into his head about what's driving him. And he himself may may not have done the introspection needed for him to understand where this is coming from. It's just like this, but it's compulsion or this habit that he is, it might be making you crazy. And if you say, oh, it's making me crazy, that he might do it out of niceness, but a habit doesn't it's hard to work on a habit and get better at a habit because it's making someone else crazy. But if you yourself understand, oh, the reason I'm doing that is because I grew up so poor and it kills me to see a kid, pulling out one tissue after the other, okay, I hear that. Do you think it's fair that your kids grow up without having an understanding that, in other words, you grew up poor and having to be frugal. Do you think it's fair to impose that on your kids in the sense of making them terrified of doing anything and not being able to enjoy maybe something that they otherwise could enjoy? So you have to balance these issues out. But again, him doing the introspection is going to give you a lot of insight. Rikki, the thing I want to caution you about, though, if you come out after him to find out, well, we need to figure this out and why, and whatever. If you come out strong or what, he's just going to go on the defensive, and then he's going to clam up and he's not going to share with you his deep heart. But if you were like, let's look at this, because I hear you. If this is really what you want me to do, to spend 24/7 managing the kids, not wasting, okay. It's frustrating to me. It's hard for me. I feel like we need to pick our battles. But if that's what you feel is our number one thing that we have to do, I'll work on it. I'll try and be more, whatever. But it would really be helpful to understand what's driving you. Where is this coming from? Because I think if we understand that, then that we're not going to be reacting to some past, problems. We're going to be acting out of a choice of how we want to raise our kids. Does that make sense?
That's a really good point. I never really looked at it that way, to ask him, why does it bother you so much? I never really did.
Right. Do you know him? You're so sweet. Do you know his home situation? Was he growing up? Do you know the in-laws?
They weren't uptight about it. I don't think so.
It's just something that developed in his head. It's very interesting. I had somebody whose father would always ask his kids, how's the weather? What's the weather like? And, he'd always talk about, oh, the weather here, we're having, the barometric pressure. Does anyone know what barometric pressure? Maybe so. Maybe there's a guy showing.
I was going to say another thing that Leah, like this knowledge. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know what, but I know. But he would ask, "What's your bear?" And he would ask all these things, and the kid always felt like, "What? Who cares about the weather?" Now they've got all these apps or whatever. This was many years ago. I heard the story, and what he said, which kind of blew me away, is that was his father's way of showing love to him. Like, what's going on in your environment? His father wasn't the type to say, "Oh, I love you." He was kind of I think he was a veteran. I think from the Vietnam War, something like that. He was a veteran, and he wasn't the warm, mushy type or whatever, but that was his way of checking in, and it's his father's way of showing love. So it could be this is your husband's way of showing love. Now it might be very annoying to you. I got that, okay, but might be his way of feeling like he's raising them well. If they ended up not wasting, he's raising them well. Okay, hold on.
Well, Rachel on Instagram is asking, does she know their financial situation? Meaning maybe her husband is feeling he doesn't want to share with her that he's strapped, but maybe he does feel that they want to be a little bit more conservative with what they're using.
That's a very good question. Is that part of his?
No, I think it's just personality. You know how certain people are just personality, their types are to be like that?
I see.
I think now that you brought it up, his father in his house, he grew up with like, oh, why is this here? Why is this like that? And da 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 da. You know what I mean? So it's like the whys and the hows and the whens, those annoying questions. That's how he grew up, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not. No, it's not.
That's it. So you're saying that it's the nitpicking, the trying to feel like everything that is going on in the house he has to have control over.
Not necessarily. He's not a control freak. He's not. It just comes. If I asked him, he's not a control person. He's not a. You know what I mean? It's just how he is. You know what I mean? It's not intentionally bad. It's just how a person is, and it's just something that needs a little tweak. You know what I mean? We all have our little annoying quirkinesses.
I hear, but some of the things you said to me in the pre-show interview, you were talking about how it's like you want him to be your hero, but when he does this constantly
It does. It drives me nuts. It does. It really, really, really does to the core. Like sometimes I put my face in the fridge and I'm like, oh, there we go again. But you know what I mean? Like it was me a year ago. I would be fuming and I'll be huffing and puffing. And coming 5 months after listening to your lectures, it really transitions. Like it does drive me nuts. But do I have to say everything that drives me nuts? Not necessarily. I learn to zip it sometimes. You know.
Mhm.
It's the best way to go. I know he doesn't mean bad. It's just how he is. So I can either focus on that, or I could just say I know that if I ask him, I know that he would try his best to change it because he wants to have a happy home, and he doesn't realize that maybe this is, but he may not see that it's something that bothers us. Like when you're into the picture, you may not see something wrong with it unless an outsider may tell you.
Right. I hear. I'm just trying to figure out how you can both love him and accept him for who he is and give him unconditional love, but while at the same time not have him have a habit that is so frustrating to you. And
Right.
some things, some problems that we deal with are outside of ourselves, and we try to we don't have much control over what's going on. And so, but I always feel there's always like 1% of something you can do about it. And I'm just looking at where you can possibly for your own self-mental, you've come very far away. As you said, you tuck in the fridge. I can't believe what, there he goes again, or whatever. And you do it in the fridge. And that's fantastic, because it's kind of like diffusing it and letting water go off a duck's back, which is very valuable. But by the same token, if you were able to have conversations with him that helped him to, in other words, if you discovered that the reason he's doing this because he thinks that's what a good dad did, as you said, that's his dad, and he loves his dad, right? And he saw that's what his father did, and that's part of his personality, whatever. So that's very different. And how did how did his mother react to the father being so picking at everybody all the time?
So her outlook is like, just let it go. Who cares? All the who's, the whys, the whens. Just live life and be happy. She had the same. She had the same outlook.
She's the same as you. You're saying.
Right. She learned to keep quiet. She wouldn't say anything. I mean, we're talking about like years ago. I don't know if women had so much of a say. You know what I mean?
You're saying so
in
she just zipped her lip and just lived with it.
Exactly.
Interesting. We've got a question. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, it's funny because when she just said that, but Rivka is asking, was that something that she saw that her mother-in-law was at peace with, or was she just living with it and doing the same thing she's doing, which is putting her head in the refrigerator and saying, "Oh my gosh, again"? Meaning, it's one thing to live with it and be accepting of it. It's another thing to be resentful,
your whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And you're holding on to this. So
yes.
So yeah. I like that question. The difference is that my parents' background is not where they're so connected to Torah. They didn't have who or what to learn from. They weren't connected like that. But when we came here, Baruch Hashem, we did have an opportunity to learn. So between me and my husband, we have a Rav, we have Das Torah. So in a way, I feel like we have more of a leeway where if I have an issue, I could discuss it with my husband, and he's more open to hearing it because he has his own Das Torah that he follows. If we have issues or whatever it is, we go to. So no, I don't keep my mouth hush hush. But am I saying at the moment, am I learning to bite my tongue? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. But in the privacy of our room, we could talk about it, and I could be open, and I'm not living with it in misery because we are working on it. You know what I mean? It just takes time until learning how to communicate. You know what I mean? Like nothing changes overnight.
So this is very good. And for people who are tuned in, who have similar situations, hopefully this will open up the ability to have conversations that are productive. You don't have conversations where you're making them defensive or pushing them away or whatever. So it's really got to be thought through exactly what you're going to say before you even open your mouth the first time. But for everyone who's watching, who wants to understand how to get on, why is my husband so cheap? In this situation, you can see there's a cheapness about it, a frugality about it. But this all of what we've been talking about also applies to people whose husband just is always trying to, do things cheaper or whatever, or maybe he's generous with himself, but he's not generous with you, with that wife or the kids or something like that. And it's a very challenging thing. And I think everybody knows most of the financial problems. I mean, most of the problems in marriage, a lot of them end up being financial differences in what the priorities for the money, differences for how you handle money, differences, is it fair? He went out and bought himself a fancy, phone or whatever, and the door in your car doesn't open properly, So these types of issues are very, very challenging. And the key to overcoming these things is to understand people's history and to understand their particular challenges and their habits in this area, and to be able to talk about them in a way without making each other defensive. So let's move on to the next thing, which is, we'll take one question before we get to that.
Okay, so this question came in from Karen, who said, how do you accept your husband for who he is when he has a quality that so repulses you and damages the whole atmosphere? Like, for example, being cheap or stingy or temperamental or dishonest. Keeping quiet too much can lead to an explosion.
Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. And it's very.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Can I tell you something? Yeah. I've been working on this endlessly and davening for siyata d'shmaya, but there were things that used to pent up inside me and used to distance me from my husband. I mean, everybody has to know their spouse. My husband has a laid back personality. That's why I could talk to him. Not every man is like that. Everybody has to know. But I feel like in the past, I would hold on to resentment, and he would come around and he would do something to make me happy, but because I was upset. And then I transitioned through learning your communication class, and I'm like, you know what? Being a baby in it is just not going to help me. So what I was able to communicate, I'm like to him, I don't know if you can change it or whatever you want is up to you, but at least I want to bring it out to the table how I feel so I could get acknowledged. So, at least it's not being resentment inside of me. You know what I mean?
And how did he react? How did he react to that?
He is beyond floored to see how I'm changing, honestly. He told me in the past you used to be head on, you would fight tooth for nail. And he's pretty impressed. He told me he respects me a lot for the fact that I'm making such changes.
Wow.
And I was really appreciative of that because I knew how to push his buttons, unfortunately. And now I realize that it didn't get me where I wanted to be. So now I'm trying very hard to internalize everything you're saying. So as long as I was able to get that out, the resentment doesn't pile up inside me. So I know how.
So how did he react when you told him, listen, you're not sure how this is going to turn out. You don't know what the outcome is going to look like, but you just have to get it off your chest. That's the thing that I want people to give themselves permission to do in the kindest way possible without having, knowing exactly how it's going to work out or what it's going to be. But how did he react to that?
I guess any man, they don't want to feel like they're being attacked. Every man wants to see his wife happy. Right. Every man, you know what I mean? Like every man wants to see his wife happy. And if we could come out of a disagreement where I still feel like I'm on his side and we still feel like we have a good communication and we're not into that, oh, here we go again, we're not talking for a few days, he's very happy. He's happy to know
what's going on in your heart.
Can it change overnight? Not necessarily. He's like, but thank you for telling me. No, everything is like a layer, little by little.
A layer. Yeah, no, it's very good. I'm just not sure we answered her question. What was the question again? Sorry, I'm off track a little bit here. What was the question?
No, the question was basically that she's asking, how do you hold back when your husband has something that's really bothering you, because you can hold back for a little, but eventually
yes,
you're going
right.
to
And
explode.
also she used the word repulsive, which is a very,
Yes,
it's interesting because
repulsed by your husband, correct, by what he's doing.
right. There's actually a thing in the Torah that talks about, this is a 3,000-year-old track record of history of bulletproof plan to have happiness in your life. And there's something that talks about repulsive, and it says if your husband's doing something repulsive or is repulsive to you, so that's very interesting that she used that word, because it's there's a different, if he's doing something that's bothering you, there's one set of things. If there's something he's doing something that's repulsive, then that's a whole other set of things to do. So if it's the repulsive, and if she's using it the word in its entirety, they need marital counseling, or they need a rabbi or rebbitzin or a clergy person to meet with them and to get a third party in there to figure out what's going on in the relationship. It needs to be figured out. But from the stand, so let's take the word repulsive out. Okay. And for people who, just what they do is just driving them crazy, like Rikki here. And, he's just picking at the kids. For those types of things, being just swallowing it. Everybody knows when you're like, when she's talking into the fridge and saying, oh, there he goes again, that's the point that she's reached where you can't just let water off a duck's back. That's a point where you can't just say, okay, let bygones be bygones, just leave it as it is. No, that's the point where you have to say, okay, what am I going to do about this? I'm a wife. What am I going to do about it? How am I going to solve this? How am I going to get closer? How am I going to bring my husband closer? And you, or a spouse, or any relationship, whoever it's with, to sit down and make a notebook and to write down, here is the problem. Here are 25 solutions I'm going to write down of what could possibly do. Number one, I'm going to speak with him from my heart and tell him how much it bothers me. That's probably not going to be so effective. Number two, I'm going to help him. I'm going to ask him the question, do you have any idea why teaching frugality is so crucial to your kids? Number three, how is frugality and being cheap or whatever, why is that such a high value in your thing? Isn't it better that they're good people? You spend all of your time teaching our kids about frugality, but you don't spend any time telling them how important it is to be nice. I remember, when my kids were little, I remember them saying, oh, that's so beautiful. I said, is it more important to be nice or to be beautiful? Is it more important to be nice or to be smart? Is it more important, and whatever, that was my own personal thing, because I wanted the most important value for me in raising a kid. I don't know if it's the most important, but one of the most important is being nice. I wanted nice kids, I wanted them to be a mensch. And so, do you realize, dear husband, that you keep focusing on frugality? Let's say you succeed 100% and the kid is 20 years old and they are very frugal. Are you going to be happy with that result? Or are there other qualities that are way more important to you, like being nice, or being thoughtful of others, or I don't know, a million things, being kind, being thoughtful, being compassionate, go through a list of character traits. There may probably 10 things more important to your husband than being frugal, and he's spending all his time on making them frugal. So having these kinds of conversations with them, deep conversations, are what are going to help him grow and to bring out the best in your husband. Now, if you do this with wagging your fingers, if you do it by making him wrong, if you do it by you're right and he's wrong and he's got an idiot, he needs to listen to you, it's going to backfire. You're going to be worse off. So don't have the conversation unless you can get yourself to the place where you can give it over in a way that's supportive and loving and unconditional love for who he is. Just we're exploring. And you may not have had these kinds of conversations with your husbands in the past. And if you haven't, there's a good time to start. But if it's going to cause a huge rift or a fight, don't try it yourself. Maybe do it with a third party or get coaching on how to do that better. I'm going to take a question, then got a question for you, Rikki. So go ahead, Sarit.
Okay, so the next question is from Tamar, who says, I understand why my husband is how he is, and I don't blame him for it, but I still can't take it. Which I think a lot of women obviously have an issue with, that they understand, let's say, what's happening, but they can't deal with it. She says, I still can't deal with it.
Right. Okay. So I hear that. So here's the thing. I want you to know that all of your soul sisters here, we're all supporting you. We all get it. We all get how annoying it is. We all get how frustrated you are. And we are very impressed with your ability to not blow your top on them 24/7. But a wife said to me once, she said, I don't understand him, and I'm just sick of it. I'm just sick of it, whatever. And what I said to her, a little bit harsh words, I said, don't you get it? This is your job. Like, you are created on the planet Earth, and then God gave you various challenges in your life, and you succeeded at some of them and you failed at other ones, and you're working to be a better person, hopefully every day of your life. This is the job God gave you. Has nothing to do with your husband. God thinks for the perfection of your soul, this is the exact challenge you needed.
That's so beautiful that you say that, because as soon as we are able to realize that and accept that challenge, there's no purpose for that challenge anymore, and things change around. And I've spoken, like, I heard stories, like somebody shared with me, where her husband had like a really annoying character trait and he flipped out on her, and she put him out of the picture and he stormed out of the house and he didn't come back.
Boy.
And she put Hashem into the picture. Hashem, obviously, I'm in a situation because there's something. It's not my husband. He can't do an iota to make me happy. He can't do anything. It's you, Hashem. You're behind everything. And when she was able to put Hashem into the picture, her husband, 3 hours later, called her back. He said, I wanted to apologize. I acted out of character. He came home and they totally, like, as if nothing happened. You know what I mean? Like, realizing that it's not our spouse that can harm us. It's not our spouse that could do anything to us. It's really Hashem behind everything, which gives me a lot of inspiration to get through the day sometimes. Because
Leah, that's your famous line, the one that I literally have like on as a piece of paper, that whenever you say, anytime we're dealing with something, you're like, it came from Hashem. So what does Hashem want from me right now? Instead of taking on my anger on my husband or turning it onto my husband, let me turn to Hashem and shift where it's coming from.
We had a whole class, actually. Click on our shows, ladiestalkshow.com, full episodes. And there's this whole show, I don't even remember what it was called. It was talking about how this exact topic of having that all of the challenges in your life are from God. And that once you have that, there's like this freedom of not feeling like a victim. First of all, you feel like you've got power in it. You can talk to Hashem, you can pray to Hashem, you can daven, please help this situation or whatever. I have women, she said, when I'm in the middle of a blasty fight with my husband, what should I do? I don't know how to stop it. And I said, just in your mind, just think, God, help me. And suddenly, like, the phone will ring or the doorbell will ring or something will, God will help you in the middle of your, whatever. And you will see this. This is like a guarantee. We know that God is there trying to take care of every little thing in our life. And this is a way your trust in Him, your emunah in Him, your betuchen of letting faith. I don't know what you call it, but it's just letting your hair down and letting yourself trust. So, but the main thing is if you take your husband's, like he's doing this to you, right? Which everybody would get mad, but if you realize this is a challenge that you have, hopefully that'll get you on the other side of it. Okay. So now, Rikki, my question for you is, I want to dissect, because you've really grown a lot. I'm very impressed. It's very actually inspiring to talk to you, somebody who's actually worked on themselves and own their own stuff, and when I was talking the pre-show interview, a lot of people are like, I don't know, hide who they are and like, blame everything on everybody. You were owning a lot of stuff of what's happening in the relationship that is causing lack of closeness in the marriage, and you're working very hard at it. So it's inspiring to see somebody on that path to becoming
I was guilty. I would always make myself the victim. I'm like, it's not fair, and he's always doing this, and the only person that was left hurt was me at the end. I would like be eaten up by my thoughts, and after you gave your class, am I martyr or something? Like, you had a class title like that. I was blown away. Am I sabotaging myself? I was blown away. Like, how long can I be a baby before I need to step up to the plate and try to exercise my muscles and try to, you know what I mean?
Right. No, it's
very rewarding. It really is. It's not easy. It's really not easy. But if you would see me then and now, I'm like, thank God for Leah.
Very nice. That's awesome. So here's what we want to do, though. We want to have a breakthrough right here, right now, in your ability to be with your husband's frugality? How are we going to do that?
I think you give a really good advice, which I never thought of. Get into his shoes and try to understand where he's coming from and why is it important for him. And based on that, maybe I don't have to think about that. I told you I have to think about it for a few hours before I put anything on the plate. But maybe I can lay it out and as in, how can you help us want to do what you want, but maybe saying it in a way which makes us want to do it. I don't know. I have to think about it. Number one step is to understand where he's coming from,
Mhm.
and then asking him, can we do it in a way where it makes us want to do it? If we say it in a certain, not past a certain decibel, where we could make the child feel like a mensch, like give him his dignity. You know what I mean? When we say it, we could say it a little bit like a by the way type of thing. I don't know. I have to see.
Well, let me tell you
I
a
don't know.
story that there was a big rabbi who the kid did something on a Shabbos that wasn't it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't what the father, this big Rav, would have wanted. And the kid knew it and the father knew it and whatever. And so he called his son into his office and the son was like trembling and afraid that his father was really going to lambaste him. And his father didn't. His father said, you know, you're such a tzaddik, such a
Righteous person.
righteous person. I think what happened, it was a little bit beneath who you are, but everybody makes mistakes and it's fine, or something like, so the kid was blown away. I mean, I heard the story through the kid's eyes, and maybe I read it something many years ago, but it blew me away because rather than doing the natural thing, which is you did this and you shouldn't have done that, blah, 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 made the kid feel bad, he pointed out how wonderful his son was and what a righteous person and good person his son was. And okay, what you did was a little beneath you, but that all happened. It was such a, I don't know, just somehow something about that story always stuck with me of the kindness you can do. And here's the thing, ladies, the effectiveness. What's going to be, someone's clicking. There's too much clicking. Sorry. No, it's not you. Sorry. Okay. Okay. It's okay. So anyway, but it stopped. So that was good. It's just the kindness that what's going to be the most effective is how that father did it. It stuck with that guy his whole life. And then story was told to me and however many other people, and it affected us just being that kindness. So, but the other thing that Rikki, that I think that you need to think about is the fact of finding out what your husband's goal is, his end game. Like, it is everything. In other words, if his end game is to raise nice kids, or his end game is to raise,
I understand.
But if his end game is to raise few frugal kids, is he doing that just out of a habit, or is he doing that because that's really what he values the most? Probably not. So maybe having him see that, but again, how you say that to him, it makes all the difference.
Exactly. It's a world of difference.
Yeah. Okay, so good. So now my next question for you, and I want to examine in the moment, a million things are happening, and let's just come up with 5 strategies. And I'm asking viewers also to come up with strategies, Sarit, to come up with strategies with you, Rikki, to think of in the moment. He does a really cheap thing. He said, a kid uses a paper plate and he says, wash it and put it back on the thing, and you just like, let's say the kid had a horrible day and he had, he came from school and one kid bullied him and one whatever, and he had this horrible day. And as the father starts pecking at him to wash a paper plate, in that moment, let's come up with 5 strategies that you can use to diffuse the situation for yourself and for the family. Done. Done. What has worked in the past?
That's a tough one, Leah. That's a very good example. My God.
Nothing worked.
Try to change scenario, maybe try to change, like, oh, by the way, did you hear about this and that? Maybe like change change topic.
Oh, you mean like distract with another whole thing?
Right.
But
Change the focus maybe.
and is he still going to do the is he still going to have to wash the plate?
I don't know. You know what? There were times, like say for example, something did happen, and one of my kids was having a hard time. I'd be like, I tell Abba, he looked like he had a really hard day. You think this time we could just let it slide, type of thing. I did say that in the past when one of the kids were having a hard time, and he's like, okay, fine, type of thing. Like it wasn't a big deal. Like I was open to shit up. Like he looks like he had a hard day today. Let's just leave
You
it at
said
that.
that privately to your husband or in front of the kid? Because that needs to be done privately. That kind of a thing. Contradicting your husband's pronouncement.
Guilty. I was guilty. It wasn't done in an annoying way, but I was like, what do you think? Like, he looks like he had a hard day. You think we could just leave it at that type of thing? And we'll
Right. So I'm going
revisit
to
it.
tell you a little bit of a caveat. It's going to sound like I'm criticizing you, and I'm not at all, but I just want you to keep this in mind as you're moving forward and as everybody's moving forward, is that women, a lot of times the husband comes in much harsher than a wife would. It's like, a kid yells at the table and he says, go to your room. And you're like, that's not a go to your room crime, go to, and a husband will be much harsher. So the wife always in front of the family, in front of the husband, in front of everybody, the wife will defend the kid or say, oh, come on, or lessen the punishment, lessen the harshness. Okay, and a woman thinks she's doing right. And frankly, if you read all of the, psychology magazines, I'm not putting them down at all. They can be extremely helpful or whatever, but everybody will tell you, yeah, go soft and kids are soft these days and blah, blah, blah. Fine. Meanwhile, when the kid becomes a teenager and needs that harshness to keep them in line, the wife has so undermined the father's authority and the father's power that now the kid as a teenager is all over the place because he doesn't have a daddy who was harsh to him all the time, who we could expect to be harsh, I'm not saying harshness is good, hitting all the, I'm not advocating anything, but we do know there's a fact. There's how a woman raises a child and how a husband raises the child. And the women, because of all the magazine articles and whatever, her way somehow is the way it should be. His way is thrown out the window years ago. And meanwhile, we're raising kids who don't have that firm, solid ground that they need to have in order. God gave us a harsh husband, a harsher, and it could be others. I'm not, making a blanket statement, but you could have a husband who, who's a little softer, but usually the husband's harsher. He talks harsher, he acts harsher, he's more logical thing. And the woman is like softer and more compassionate and more, whatever she's, raising the kids and feeding them and doing a lot of the stuff. So I'm just saying that when you are in front of the kids, everybody who's watching this, be very, very careful how you undermine your husband's power, because while they're 7 years old and 3 years old and the soft thing, it works. When they get to be teenagers and they're 12 and they're 13 and 14, they don't have a hot father that they can look up to, and they don't have that strength that grounds them that God had given them in the beginning. There you go. Okay.
No, by the way, heavy stuff. And you know that I always openly share for my own stuff, and it's my actual sort of I guess tshuva, and my being able to say I did this and it was so wrong and I'm working so hard for it because of it. But it happens to be my 24-year-old and I were talking recently, and he actually said to me, Mom, when I was younger and growing up, exact words that he used is, many times when you would argue with Abba, or let's say he would say something to us and you would sort of undermine what he said, you emasculated him. You really didn't give him the respect he needed. And we saw it as children. And it was like so eye-opening to me, because I know that I did that, but I sort of, I've been working on it. And I sort of thought that maybe they didn't see it necessarily, but they really do. Like, the kids really see when a wife is not giving her husband the respect that he needs. Like, it's not just you and him. There's so much more going on, and everything you do is going to be seen by your children and other generations. So like, you have to really think about it.
I want to put in perspective what Sarit said. So first of all, Sarit, thank you for sharing that, because it's like it's like
Tshuva, it's my tshuva.
it's your tshuva, but
I'm
also
so sorry. And I said it to him also.
repentance.
I'm like, I'm so sorry I did that. Like, it's not.
No, it's good that he felt close enough to you to do that. That's a tribute to you.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that what her telling us that gives us the strength to do hard things, which is to zip our lip in the middle. When our husband, we want to undermine our husband or say we're right, they're wrong, and we shoot them down and make it hard. So it's very validating for us to give us the strength to give our husband that respect and that honor when it's really hard and when we feel like they don't deserve it. But I want to tell you another thing, that when you recognize something in yourself that you want to grow, like here's where Sarit was, and here's she growing or whatever. But that comment from her son has got to be extremely painful. However, what you have to know, all of the Musar safers, the ones that talk about growing your character and being the best you and bringing out the best in yourself and bringing out the best in your family, they all start with knowing your own greatness. They don't start with Sarit, you undermined your husband, you emasculated him. They don't start by bonking you, bonk, bonk, bonk. They all start with how great is a human being, and we're a little piece of God. God breathed the breath into us, and there's something holy about us, and there's something elevating about us, and there's something spiritual that can grow beyond these petty little things. Okay, that's where they start. Why? Because growing ourselves to be that person that is to maximize our potential, that's not going to come by beating ourselves up. So I just wanted to let you know, Sarit, that you're sharing that with us allows us to grow. But if you take what your son said and allows it to beat yourself up, you're going to undermine your own potential.
Right. So it happens to be, we had a show literally around that time that everyone should check out with Rebbitzin Esty. And she had said on that show, Esty Hamilton, Rebbitzin Esty, and it's just an amazing show. And she said actually that no one ever grows through criticizing themselves and through negativity. And I actually did say to my son, because we were having this very open conversation, and I did say to him, I completely agree with you, and I was wrong. And it's been something that I've worked on for some time, and it's something I work on. And unfortunately, I didn't have so many, even around me, I didn't have the best examples in so many different areas. So I was just like a strong personality. And I felt like, well, if he's saying something that's wrong and the kids need to know that it's wrong, or I want, like what damage is he going to do to the kids? Because that's all mother thinks about. Like, if he says that, he's damaging the child and their self-esteem. And I was doing the opposite. So we don't realize at the time, because we think we're so tunnel focused, like my kid is hurt, or he's screaming at him, or he's saying the wrong things, or he's going to have the worst self-esteem because what his father is doing. We're actually doing the opposite when we sit there and undermine
them. And so I just want to give everybody, because we're actually almost out of time, I want to give everybody one secret that this will strengthen you in these situations. If you don't know what to do in a situation and your husband is doing something to the kid and you want to intervene and you're sure you are right? There's no woman who like barrels ahead because she thinks she's wrong. She's barreling ahead and chopping her husband's head off or legs off, or what. I'm getting very bloody today. But she's doing all these horrible things, to undermine her husband because she thinks she's right. And the question, the secret is to ask, why am I so positive I'm right about this? It could be, God himself gave a harsher husband and a softer wife, or the most important thing to keep in mind in that time is, if you have shalom in the house, if you have peace between your husband and you take care of your husband, the kids will be fine. We have I literally, there's probably, there's 220 Torah sources in here. There's probably, 20 that talk about how if you take care of shalom bayis, if you go after shalom, that your kids will grow into the closest to you, the close to each other. They'll have this strength, whatever. If you take care of your husband first, if you take care of your peace in your home, taking care of your husband first doesn't mean your needs are neglected. It means you're taking care of your husband so that he can take care of you. It's this closey relationship, and that's where you need to go with it. But if you, in the heart of the moment, if you find yourself undermining your husband, then the take home message at that moment is to think how much blessing is going to come into your home if you take care of your husband. Okay, last question from Rikki. I just want to find out, make sure you're good. So you have a basic plan now of how to approach your husband about this that hopefully will bring you guys to the next level in your closeness. Yeah.
Yeah, you're amazing. It was awesome.
Do you have any last question or anything?
No, you covered it all. Thank you.
You got it. Okay. Well, that was.
So, wait, can I add one question from our amazing viewers? Because this is such an important question. Is Bracha asks, how do you find a balance between accepting your husband and helping him be his best self?
That's a great question. So 9 times out of 10. Accept him how he is and shower him with appreciation and kudos and encouragement and support and telling him how great he is. Do that 9 times out of 10. And then in 10% of the time, maybe even less, maybe 5%, let's give you 10% of the time, you can work on improvement things, but you have to think very carefully how you're doing it. If you're going to say, I don't like the way you did that. Obviously that's going to be effective, not going to be effective. If you are, on the other hand, you're sitting at, and let's say, gee, it really bothers me that he keeps slamming the back door every time. And then and he keeps slamming the back door. What's the best way to get that solved? I think I'll scream at him every time he does that. Yeah, that'll be effective. No, not. Oh, I know. Let me ask him if he can put a new gasket around the thing, or new bumpers on the thing so it doesn't slam so much, or maybe a big sign, on the floor below the door, or on the sign, on the door, please don't slam me, or something like that. Think about it carefully on how you're going to get that point across to him. That's but most of the time you're just giving him support and love. And then guess what? Ladies, he's going to want to help you. He's going to be motivated to grow in the way you want him to grow. If that's not there, if those appreciations, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're in a bad mood, or you're have hormones, or you're pregnant, or you whatever. You have a lot going on. It's like, really, now I've got to, my job is to bolster my husband. Hello, that's our job. And the person who gets paid for that job is us. Because the more you bolster him and build him, the more he's going to be motivated to make you the happiest woman in the world. Okay, we're out of time. Sarit, that was awesome. Thank you very much. Rikki, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing yourself and sharing your growth. It's very inspiring to see somebody who has worked on themselves as much as you have and come this far. So I'm very, very grateful to you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Here's the thing, ladies. If you don't subscribe, you may miss out, and you're going to miss some great content. So you need to either like us or follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, on Torah Anytime, on YouTube, or go right to our website, www.ladiestalkshow.com, and fill in a subscription button. And then you'll get every week an update on exactly what's happening. And if you do that, oh, by the way, if you subscribe on our website, you also get 10 tips to have a great relationship. Don't miss it. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot.